Welcome to an all-new episode of the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. This is Corey Richmond, joined by Jason Brooks. Jason, the Super Bowl is in the rearview mirror. We're on the road to WrestleMania, and the forbidden door apparently is wide open, and it's known as Tony Khan. Jay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. A lot of stuff going on in wrestling and looking forward to talking about it with you.
Yeah, I mean, it has been every week something new happens, and we go, did not expect that. I mean, we mostly won't get a chance to talk about it, but, just off the top, congratulations, Leo Rush, on winning the AAA Cruiserweight Championship. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about MLW, a lot of other stuff. But, Jay, I guess we should start off with WWE and the good, the bad, and the ugly. Do you want to start with the good, the bad, or the ugly? Because the ugly we know will be Monday Night Raw, and the good will mostly be NXT or some guy named Roman Reigns and his great promos on SmackDown.
Yeah, wherever you want to start, brother. I'm ready.
All right, we'll do the ugly, so we'll get that out of the way, so we can clean the palate with one of your delicious beers as we go along, which we'll find out what it is a little later on in the show. But Jay, we found out that we got a little bit of payoff of Talking Smack this past week, where we had the really good segment with Paul Heyman and Adam Pearce, where Paul Heyman said, you know what, you better give us a main event for the Elimination Chamber or your job could be in jeopardy. And we got a payoff, which a lot of times WWE don't. So we'll get into the Talking Smack segment in a little while, but we found out our main event for Elimination Chamber. We've got a bunch of 40-year-old dudes and a 35-year-old and Drew McIntyre for the main event. What's your thoughts on not going with Sheamus right away on the one-on-one match?
I mean, it presents some intrigue because, anything could happen. It'd be a really easy way for kind of Drew to lose without looking bad. So there's different ways they can play it. So if you want to give Drew an out for losing the title, this would kind of be it, right? But yeah. Other than that, it's not a very inspiring group. AJ, who had a title shot, Sheamus, who they did this slow build, and then just one night just bro kicked him, and now he's ready for the title shot. And still, he hasn't explained. They do a 3-hour show every week, no? And he hasn't explained why he turned on him. When Drew accurately says, hey, you could have just asked for a title shot. And so, you have Jeff Hardy, who, when's the last time he won a match? And you have The Miz, who can barely win handicap matches. So I don't know any of these people and how they're going to look good enough to win the title. I guess Sheamus would be the one guy who you could see maybe winning the title, but I can't see anybody else winning. So yeah, it's a pretty uninspiring group. And why do they do the gimmick of former champion? Who cares? Who put Damian Priest in there? Put Keith Lee? Put Matt Riddle? Have it be guys never in the Elimination Chamber. It takes so long to build these guys up, and then they're like 50 by the time they get a push. It's anyway, yeah. So I think it should be a fun. It'll be a good match, obviously, and maybe Sheamus can win, but I don't know that we'll see any crazy surprises.
Yeah, I think that's a major problem we have right now, where we kind of know where everything is going. I mean, as you know, being the smart marks and looking at the dirt sheets and everything else, and just common sense on knowing what sells and knowing that a guy like Roman Reigns is the star of the company and he's more than likely going to face Edge. We know that part of the main event is secure, and he's not facing Finn Balor or Pete Dunne. We know that the Raw side is going to have the Elimination Chamber. And we're most likely sticking with another formula there. Just like you said, they're not really doing anything reinventing the wheel here. And, safe is sometimes the right way to go. The old idea of, kiss, keep it simple, stupid. But sometimes too simple is just, doesn't bring money in. And I understand you don't have audiences until WrestleMania. But the idea that you're not taking any chances, I think the idea of putting Damian Priest in that match, I know you were just throwing out, the young name guys under, 35. Actually, I think Damian Priest might actually be over 35, but younger guys who haven't had that spot yet. I think you wait a little bit longer on Damian Priest, but the other guys you said, like a Keith Lee or maybe a Bobby Lashley, or guys you haven't had in the main
event. Corey, what is it gonna hurt to put these guys in? What's it gonna hurt?
Oh no, I don't disagree with you on that, but it just doesn't make any sense. Where I think I put on at Work Shoot Pod, our Twitter account, where you could follow us during the week, get more, stuff just when you're not in, at our Wrestling Life group on Facebook, that he's the youngest. Drew McIntyre is the youngest guy in this match at 35. This isn't super intriguing booking. And we found out, earlier that, Braun Strowman was out because he had, I think it was a blood disease or something. I forgot the exact thing was. I'll take a look, try to take a quick look, when we have a free second. But the guys that are in this main event picture right now, it's just like paint by numbers. And you don't want to take any chances when you have on the other end of the spectrum, we'll talk in a few minutes, on SmackDown, where they're doing something fresh. I mean, the idea of another month of possibly Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns, they've been good matches, but I don't want to see that again. But you know that you have something new and fresh coming down the pike in Roman Reigns versus Edge. But right now, you just feel like you're holding off the inevitable of Sheamus or a returning guy like a Brock Lesnar, which I don't know if that's the right answer, but it just feels like Drew McIntyre doesn't have the right opponents. We can get into a whole different discussion, maybe a different day, on the fact that as part of the writing team or
there's no one on Raw. There's no one on Raw who should be winning that title over him. Yeah. They haven't built anybody up, and apparently, and so Strowman had a blood infection. Yeah. So sounds like he's doing okay though, which is good.
So I mean, it comes down to the idea of, have they really pushed anybody to the level where it's believable of them winning? I mean, could he have a really good match at Mania against AJ? Absolutely. Could he have a good match against, Sheamus at Mania? Absolutely. But are these matches something that you really want to see right now? I mean, before we went on the air, I brought up, an idea that's never going to happen. But, for the first time in, it's got to be like 2 years, and people can correct us. But, for the first time on NXT, which we'll talk in more in depth as the show goes along, Undisputed Era is nowhere on the card. Usually when somebody's not on the card, you go, could they be getting the call up? But, a fresh match, like I said, won't happen. But if you can build Adam Cole in 55 days or however long for WrestleMania to be the number one contender.
Ori, he's too small. He's too small. Even though Shawn Michaels, HBK, Daniel Bryan, all these guys over the years, but he's too small. Get out of here. But yeah, I mean, the idea of Adam Cole against Drew McIntyre, I think would be interesting. There's a lot of different ways, but, and again, we'll get into this more as time goes on, but I'm going to make a prediction. I do not think there is anybody on that Raw roster that is challenging for the world title at WrestleMania. I think Drew McIntyre keeps it, but I think you go against someone who's not a current full-timer on Raw right now. I think there's no way. Who would you do? So that's my prediction. We'll see if it comes true.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're mostly right. I mean, if I had my choice, and if it's not somebody from the Undisputed Era, I think somebody from SmackDown should go over there. I mean, I think I know he doesn't have a chance, but I would do a Cesaro, a Nakamura, or a Daniel Bryan. 3 guys who have really been built well on that SmackDown mid card that I think would be really good, fresh matchups for Drew McIntyre, and you would have a really good match on either night 1 or night 2, because you would think that one night you're going to have the world title, other night you're going to have the Universal title.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, we got a lot of time until then to really keep diving deep in. But yeah, I think, and we know the show's next week, so we'll talk about our predictions then. But I certainly think we're going to see some kind of part-timer challenging for the title here.
So, Jay, before we move on, how's your hole doing?
Oh my God. I mean, I don't know how Nia Jax, and listen, I don't ever want someone to lose their job. I'm not advocating for people to, lose income, especially during the pandemic and whatever. But she is fucking terrible. Like, she's terrible. That match turned into a complete comedy match. It was supposed to be this. First of all, they didn't advertise, but it was supposed to be this culmination of a build because of all the times that Lana got thrown through the table and she was going to get her revenge. But it just turned into basically a comedy spot with Nia Jax. It was, I mean, why Lana's out there every week? And we were talking before the show, and we were talking about women who could maybe challenge for the Elimination Chamber on SmackDown, and I brought up Nikki Cross, and you're like, Nikki Cross isn't on SmackDown. I was like, what? I know, yeah, I knew she had a one match with Cross, but I thought that was like I didn't realize she was on Raw. And the fact that we have Lana out there every week who can barely wrestle, God bless her, and Nia Jax who hurts people, and you have Nikki Cross who one of the best wrestlers on the main women's wrestlers on the main roster doesn't get a shot. Like what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, we all know the fact that she's different than every other girl. We know that by listening to her music. You know, she's not like most girls, aka she's a relative of The Rock, so she's gonna get opportunities that no one else does. But I mean, at some point, she's got to go back to the performance center. If you're gonna go and retrain Keith Lee and others how to, be big men and work a big man style, just because you don't want to be, have the idea of the anti-bullying and all the different things where people online who made fun of her and different things. Maybe she should be someone who goes back down after all this time and has to go and get retrained. I mean, we're not trying to be mean at this point, but she's hurt a lot of people.
No, it's not about retraining. I mean, she's been a professional wrestler for years. It's not about retraining. What she did with the my whole thing and whatever, that she's just making it up as she goes along. Sure. It's not about like retrain. I mean, what are we going to retrain on? Don't make it look like a complete bullshit. I don't think that's really the problem for me. She's just not great. And I think, and I don't want to say she's lazy because I also hate pinning that on people, especially people who are darker skin. We do that thing where they're lazy or they don't work as hard, whatever. So I kind of hate doing that too, but she seems like she's not giving her best effort all the time. Like she's half-assing it seems like sometimes. So I don't know. I don't want to talk about Nia Jackson. Well, let's move on and talk about something else. But
all right, so
she's terrible.
All right, so let's get to the good of WWE, and that's let's talk a little SmackDown. So as we say every week, because our show is usually on Thursday, we usually kind of forget about the Friday product, but the Friday product is really, really good most weeks, and it continues to be with a triple threat with Big E and Sami Zayn and Apollo Crews this past week. Did I get that? Wait, was it Apollo Crews?
Yep, you got it right.
I almost forgot that there. They had a really good three-way, setting up that undercard. You had another good match between Cesaro and Daniel Bryan. And then, of course, you had the segments with Roman Reigns and setting up, which we know more than likely will be the main event for WrestleMania on the men's side with Edge versus Roman Reigns. Jay, I'm going to let you take the floor here. Roman Reigns just continues, post him coming back from his time off for, taking for health reasons when it came to the pandemic and missing WrestleMania this past year. He's come back as more than likely the best promo in the business in a main event role. And he just continues to impress week after week. And the idea of, I don't know if he was watching, the final season of Breaking Bad and Heisenberg saying, call me by your, what's my name, put respect on it. But another promo of just saying, I'm the best here. Show me the respect I deserve. And he just had another, knockaway promo.
I mean, he's the best. He's the best heel in professional wrestling. And I don't think it's even close. So, and you guys can debate me on Wrestle Life. You can talk to me on Twitter at WorkShootPod, Instagram at WorkShootPod as well. He's the best heel in pro wrestling. And so, I mean, it's not even close. And again, it's two different shows, SmackDown and Raw. It's like, and I think a lot of that is also, you look at the storylines with SmackDown and you have Daniel Bryan, who controls his own storyline. So what's he doing? He's putting people over, right? Also, part of this is Cesaro might be signing a new contract. So I think that's also why they're giving him some wins as well.
That's the
yeah. Yeah, so that's why he's getting wins. And then a year from now, he'll be released. But at least they're giving him some wins. But Bryan has control over that, right? Daniel Bryan wants to push guys. Reigns, I think he has pretty much control over his character. And him and Heyman are the one, and Corey, that's what we're talking about. When a pro wrestler has control over what they're doing, especially veterans. I know younger guys, it's hard, but especially veterans who have been in the business for a while. You know, Reigns was on some interview that I listened to last week or a couple weeks ago, where he's like, he goes home and he obsesses about his character and how to make it better and how to improve it. And I always feel like he's been a guy who's worked hard and been driven, and everyone talks about that. But um, that's harder to do as a babyface, right? Like as babyface is just like, you're just a nice guy and you're for the fans or whatever. Like I don't think he had that part figured out. But as a heel, he really, really has his stuff figured out, and he's been tremendous. So, and Owens on the other side has been phenomenal. Another guy. These promos that Owens have, I mean, no one's writing them for him. He's talking about his granddad. He's talking about these personal things. I'm sure he's getting help, obviously. He's not probably doing them completely on his own. But a lot of it is, it's his words. You can tell when he's talking, it's his words. And we can tell when you watch Miz on Morrison, it's someone writing some goofy shit for them who doesn't know anything about comedy. And the stark difference between the shows is absolutely incredible. And it's not because it's 2 hours and 3 hours. Stop with that bullshit. I hate when people say that. That's not the reason. The reason is because it's a show that's written to be a little bit more realistic, to feel a little bit more like, it's just a much better written wrestling show. And Reigns is the biggest part of that. He is absolutely the biggest part of it. And you know, he is turning into The Rock. Like, this is what they've wanted. This is what the WWE's wanted for all this time. And they shoved him down our throats and shoved him down our throats. And we just was like, Roman Reigns, he's a nice guy, whatever. Now he's kind of taking over. Now he's becoming who we have all thought the WWE wanted him to be. He's becoming what the WWE's been trying to shove down our throats all this time. He's been having tremendous matches in the ring. His chemistry with Owens has been great. I know there was the handcuff thing, but his matches have been great for the most part. His promos have been off the charts. And so, yeah, I'm really, SmackDown's definitely a much better show to watch. I wish they would just switch it, because sometimes Friday nights, like, I'm just not into it. Like, I'm just not. And so I wish SmackDown was like switch place with Raw, so I knew I would watch every single thing, because sometimes SmackDown I miss a thing or two. But it's been a much better show than Raw, and it's been solid. I wouldn't say it's been like a great show, but it's absolutely been a solid show. And Reigns is the biggest part of that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Like I said, it's by far the much better of the two shows of the main, quote unquote, main roster every week. And it's just a shame the fact that I think a lot of people forget about the show because it's at the end of the week. And I know that basically based on scheduling and a lot of things that happened when Fox took over, that's where they had to fit it in their lineup, that had to go to Friday. But if this show was on Tuesday or Wednesday, well, if it was on Wednesday, there'd be a lot more things going on. But I mean, if this show was on Tuesday or Thursday, I think a lot more people would be talking about it, at a higher level. I mean, I know that the Reigns stuff does get the pub, but I think a lot of times, a lot of the stuff that happens, like with Bianca Belair and Sasha and Bayley, sometimes gets forgotten about because it happens at like the end of the week.
Yeah, but I think they put enough content out there. They let you know what's going on, and the ratings are good. So, and they're on a major network too. So, Raw is on, USA. So I hear what you're saying, but I think the fact that they're on a major network, I think that kind of squashes, they kind of cancel each other out. I would say.
And, otherwise, like I said, I think SmackDown was a good show. I think everything worked pretty well. And I kind of like the idea that we don't know right away. I mean, we do know, I think we have a good idea where we're going with both of these Royal Rumble winners. I think we're pretty sure that it's going to be Sasha versus Bianca Belair as well. But I like the fact that they did the same thing this week where they had Sasha come on to Raw as well, and at least have a little bit of interaction with Asuka. So I think that I think we all know who she's picking, but at least they put a little bit of doubt and don't love the idea that, we're getting Asuka versus Lacey Evans, but, I think we at least put some chess pieces on the table of not
Yeah, I
saying, all right,
mean,
obvious, this is where we're going.
yeah, we need to have an opponent, right? Like we need to just have an opponent for her. And Lacey Evans is that. And Lacey Evans not for nothing. She's not my favorite, but she has improved in the ring. I very much enjoy her finisher there, the moonsault. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy her. I think she's improved. I mean, listen, if we could see Lana against Asuka, we sure shit can see Lacey Evans against Asuka. So yeah, we'll kind of see what happens there. But yeah, no, Bianca Belair, I think against Sasha is where we're going. But again, and this is something we could talk about way down the line, but what do they do with Asuka's opponent at WrestleMania? So and that's something, let's just leave it out there in the universe and we can come back to it. But I think it's an interesting thing. If you guys have any different takes on the wrestle life, let us know. But yeah, who does Asuka face at the WrestleMania?
Rhea Ripley. I'm sorry, but I think we all know it's Charlotte, but we'll move on to more things. We'll talk about it next week. But Jay, quickly on Tuesday, they set up, the Impact Plus show this weekend. We've got Tommy Dreamer on his 50th birthday facing Rich Swann. I know you wanted to quickly just for a second. I believe you enjoyed the final promo that ended that show. Just want to talk about that for 2 seconds.
Yeah, no, I not really much to say. I enjoyed it. I encourage everyone, if you do have Impact, to go watch it. I know they don't put their shows on YouTube, which is to me a humongous mistake, just a ridiculous mistake. And I think it really hurts their show as well. Same thing with Ring of Honor, not putting their shows on YouTube. I think it really hurts their show. It hurts their viewership, things like that. But yeah, no, it was just a good segment. Obviously Dreamer's not going to win the title. He has no chance. But they just made it seem like a great story of this. If you're ever going to have a match where the one guy has literally no chance to win, but you want to watch the match anyway, that's what they did. That's the type of promo they told, and they had Moose involved, and yeah, I thought it was really, really good stuff, and we'll see what happens at No Surrender. I obviously expect Rich Swann to win, but we'll see how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I thought it was a well-done segment setting up the future with the Rich Swann Moose match, most likely in March before the April pay-per-view, which will most likely have the AEW Kenny Omega match with whoever the champion is, which we'll talk about going down the line. And also on that show, we got Private Party, who's also part of AEW in the three-way now, going up against Anderson and Gallows and James Storm and Chris Sabin, which is a weird tag team, but I'm guessing that they'll keep the titles on Gallows and Anderson. And also on that show, you've got the return of at least pay-per-view action, Trey Miguel. So on paper, it looks like a nice little show on Saturday night, which I don't know if either one of us will get a chance to see, but we'll talk about the results next week.
Yeah, and I don't expect to see any title changes. So I don't think it's a show where things will change. But sometimes they try to get cute in these Impact Plus shows because to say it's like the old school like title changes on house shows, right? It's like, you never know what you're gonna miss, so you gotta keep coming to the house shows. You never know what you're gonna miss on an Impact Plus, so you got to keep ordering it. So maybe they'll give us something here, but I don't expect to see any title changes.
Yeah, maybe it'll be a good show and word of mouth. Maybe people will order it, on the replay. But Jay, this is our favorite time of the week, the Wednesday Night Wars. I mean, with everything going on, the ratings haven't been great. It was the beginning of the impeachment hearings part 2. So in the 18 to 49 key demographic, the first 20 items, except for MTV's former show that Leo Rush was on, The Competition.
The Challenge.
The Challenge, thank you. Jackie Endy in our chat from the great sister podcast of us, You Don't Know Jackie, will most likely quickly let us know that we got that wrong. Well, you got it right. Thank you for correcting me. But that was, I believe, like number 3 or 4. But besides that, everything else was news related. But Jay, before we get into a deep dive, which one did you think was the the better show this week. I thought both of those were really good.
NXT. I mean, most weeks NXT is going to be better. I thought it was a really good show. Really enjoyed the tag matches. Enjoyed the segments. I thought it was they did a very good job of previewing the pay-per-view takeover. I love the Gargano segments. I thought it was just a very enjoyable show to watch. It flowed well. I thought it was a tremendous. I think it was one of their better. Well, they keep having good shows, but I thought this was a really, really good show. Yeah. And I thought AEW was solid too. I didn't think AEW was. I think this was one of AEW's. They had Beach Bat, but they had that Battle Royal, which I didn't love. Beach Break, right? So I would say that I thought this show from AEW was better than last week's show. They had that horrible wedding. So yeah, I'd say that both shows were actually really, really solid. NXT, I'd give a slight nod, but I'm an NXT mark, so don't whatever.
Now, the only thing I would ask when it comes to, and we'll start with NXT, did you think there might have been a little bit too much comedy on this show? I mean, I enjoyed the comedy, and when it's done well, I have no problem with it. Like, I thought the stuff with Grimes, I thought was funny. I thought the stuff with the way I thought was funny. But do you think?
Yeah, but I think the comedy thing with Gargano, the thing with Grimes was just whatever, silly. But the thing with Gargano was funny, but it also put Kushida over at the same time, right? If you're faking an injury, you're scared of your opponent, which puts him over. So, the Cameron Grimes thing aside, I thought the Gargano thing was really, really well done, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay, that's all. That's what making sure.
Yeah, no, I get that. I thought it was okay. I didn't mind it. And I mean, if you watch Impact, man, they do a lot of comedy.
Oh,
man, it's not good. So I like a little comedy that actually is funny. So no, I thought it was solid.
Do you think, and I guess we could talk a little bit about the preview now for the show in a way, but do you think that MSK, the former Rascals, do you think they're going to win this this tournament, especially the fact that you have heel champions, or do you think that Grizzly Young Veterans being in the finals last year, it's their time, or think it's kind of a crossover?
I really think the grizzled young veteran should win it. I think they should win it, and I love MSK and their match against Leganos de Fantasma. They need to give those guys a run too. They are terrific. That 450 off the other person's body from Joaquin Wilde, you do forget how good some of these. I mean, the wrestling now is just. I mean, these guys are not. The wrestling now is just absolutely outrageous. I mean, Raul Mendoza is so underrated and wild, but yeah, and you can do a heel versus heel match. I mean, they're doing that next week, right, with Karrion Kross and Santos Escobar. So I think you could do it and it would be fine, because the grilled young veterans are heels, but they also just come out and make fun of everybody. So they would just come out and make fun of Danny Burch and Oney Larkin. So I think you could do it and it would be fine. But my one criticism is I still don't know what the fuck MSK is. Like, I still would like them to have these guys' personalities, do some backstage vignettes with them, and they're usually really good at that. But I think they want to get their talent over, and which I totally understand too. But now we're getting their talent over a little bit. Let's see, maybe that's what they're gonna do. Maybe they'll lose the match, or maybe they'll win. And that's when you start putting over these guys' personalities and that they're kind of goofballs and potheads and whatever, but that they're good guys. Obviously, vague references to marijuana, but you know what I mean.
Oh, you're not watching 20-minute segments of The Bump with Caleb Braxton every week? Because apparently they were on there for like 20 minutes.
No. Although I like to see Caleb Braxton doing anything, but The Bump is not a show that I'm particularly fond of. But yeah, so I'd like to see them do more with MSK, do some vignettes and see how kind of that goes. But good for them. I think it'll be a great match. I'm really excited. I think they're going to give them a lot of time, and I think it's going to be a really, really fantastic match.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that they're doing a lot of things right now, but I still think that, and I think I brought this up last week, one of the major differences between these two Wednesday shows is you could definitely say that besides like the main event, a lot of weeks when you have, the best wrestler, one of the best wrestlers of the world in there every week, and, Kenny Omega, it doesn't feel like a lot of things on the show feel special. It just feels like wrestling match, segment, which could be a little funny.
Wait, Quinn, they don't have. We talked about this every week. They don't have this. They don't have the stars. They don't have Jericho. They don't have Moxley. They don't have Omega. They don't have Cody Rhodes. What is AEW's formula? Every week you're gonna see Jericho. Every week you're gonna see Cody. Every week you're gonna see the Bucks. Every week you're gonna see Omega. That's their formula every week, and they've almost locked in on that formula more than they have in the past. And they work, and then everybody else kind of works around it, right? And they maneuver people around those guys. The Acclaim, Top Flight, got a shot against the Young Bucks. Cody, they want to put Peter Avalon out there every week now, I guess, against them. They're trying to elevate Lee Johnson based off of Cody. So they have kind of the same formula, and it's a formula that I think has a chance to be successful. So yeah, I it makes sense why they're doing what they're doing. But they have stars. I mean, NXT just doesn't have anybody. They just don't have guys like that. They don't. I love Adam Cole. I love some of the guys that they have, but Adam Cole is not Chris Jericho. So, and that's okay. And I would rather NXT do this. Like the Xia Li segment, I thought was great. I really enjoy the Xia Li thing. She's turning into a badass. Now you have Casey and Kaden Carter involved, and I'm sure that's going to be a feud. I mean, they're two different shows. I don't think you could say what's a better show, whatever. Sometimes, I think AEW does too much. I think that's AEW's biggest problem. But like, they can't have a show as good. They can't have a show with as much star power. NXT can't. They just can't. So it's gonna be like, what's a bigger deal? There's a chance the Bullet Club's gonna reunite. There's NXT can't compete with that. There's nothing they can do to compete with that unless Okada comes on the show next week. So to me, it's not really a comparison, and the ratings reflect that, right? AEW wins every week. So I don't know that's a really true comparison in terms of what show's gonna be the higher rated show. I mean, NXT is a better show, but I watch AEW first. So that tells you all you need to know, because I need to know what's going to happen with Kenta, what's going to happen with the Bullet Club, what's going to happen with Stupid Shaq, what's going to happen with Sting out there every week apparently now. So that's that's really where it kind of comes down to for me. But as far as me being a pure wrestling fan from watching wrestling since I was 6 years old, I mean, NXT is the better show without a question.
We'll agree to disagree on that most weeks, but so
you think AEW is better most weeks? Absolutely. Oh, I mean, no way. But all right, go ahead.
All right, so let's unless there's more you want to talk about before, because we'll get into the preview, the actual show in a few minutes. Unless there's something else from NXT that you want to get into, we'll get into AEW and the better show. But was there anything from NXT you wanted to?
No, apparently you don't watch me when I'm on camera, and I say to move on to the next subject. But sorry. Yes, that is that's fine. I'm just messing with you. No, we can move on and talk about AEW. NXT was very good, and again, you guys on Wrestle Life, if you want to give your thoughts or whatever. But again, it's hard. I mean, they don't have, as much as I complain about Chris Jericho wrestling every week. He's Chris fucking Jericho. Like you just can't compete with that, So
Chris fucking Jericho.
I mean, think about when Jericho came back with the Kevin Owens stuff and the list and the pop he got on Raw. Corey, he was the biggest. He had the biggest pops on Raw out of anybody. This is on Monday Night Raw every Monday night, which gets 2.5 million people every week.
No, not anymore.
Well, not anymore, right? NXT has no one who can compete with that. And it's not their fault. They're not in that kind of competition. So
sure.
Let's talk about AEW.
The AEW. Let's talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly there. Let's be fair. Off the top, I'll be the first one to admit I thought that the Joey Janela Darby Allin match was going to be a total shit show. I'm going to give Joey Janela praise for maybe the first time in history. I actually thought Joey Janela actually had a good wrestling match for the first time ever. But him and Allin actually worked really well together. Usually their matches are just them trying to kill each other. I thought they actually worked well. I really enjoyed the main event. I felt Kenta looked like a star. I thought the Thunder Rosa.
Did he? What do you mean looked like a? Did he? He wasn't the last person to win the match. He was completely overshadowed by the Good Brothers coming out there. They barely showed him at the end. What do you mean he looked like a star? What are you talking about?
The dive that he did, putting.
Yeah, I mean he had some good spots, but what do you mean look like a star? They barely mentioned him, and he wasn't even there at the end.
I think that for the 3 years that he was in NXT, where he basically was just another person. I know he was always hurt when he was there.
He was hurt a lot in NXT. That's not the same comparison. It's a different comparison. He was hurt all the time in NXT. And then they were gonna give him the push when he did the GTS and he got hurt again. In San Jose at WrestleMania weekend. That's not what are we comparing about here? He looked like a star because he did two moves. Come on, Corey. Get out of here. They did a good job of highlighting him and Moxley. He did not look like a star. He looked like a guy in the match. They didn't make anyone look like a star. It was a freaking brawl. And then the Good Brothers came out and it was madness. They didn't make him look like a star. I completely disagree with you.
He didn't look like a joke. Like he looked like for majority of the time he was,
we're not. I don't want to talk about. He had injuries there. I think it was a different. I think it was a different kind of thing there.
I also thought they made Lance Archer look really good in that match, where it took 3 people to basically take him out. I mean, you could.
Yeah, now that I agree. That I agree with. Lance Archer looked. They made Lance Archer look. When Omega, they had to pick him up. I agree with you 100% there. They made Lance Archer look like a badass and look like a guy who could possibly be the next contender. Because Lance Archer could say, it took 3 of you to beat me, so I can beat you, one-on-one. So maybe Lance Archer. I know eventually we're gonna get Moxley. I don't know when they're gonna do that. I guess Revolution. But I think they could do Lance Archer against Omega as a main event, and I think that'd be a good match.
Yeah, and I thought the Thunder Rosa Leah Hirsch match was really good, but I do have a couple of complaints though. I mean, and I'm not the first one to say this though. Can we for once not have the one women's match every week in the death segment of 9:30 when you have to have half your match in a picture-in-picture during a commercial break? I mean, I understand that maybe you want to say this is your women's matches are so good that people are not going to turn away during picture-in-picture, but you know what? I don't believe that most people, especially if NXT has other stuff not on during a commercial, are going to stay when they have to watch a half a screen. Jay, you may totally disagree with me. This is a nitpick, but when every single week you have a women's match on at that time spot, and you can't put another match. I mean, the Inner Circle versus, which I thought was a good match, versus Bowens and Caster, but you have to go. You couldn't put that during picture.
Corey, come on, every week. You know how they feel about the women's division. It's a joke. The women's division's a joke there. I know they're trying, and they're showing some improvements. They consider women's division mostly a joke, and until they get some stars in there. Look at the way they're promoting Jade Cargill. The woman, I don't know if she can wrestle better than Troy the Dog, but they hype her up. But Layla Hirsch, who's from Moscow or New Jersey or wherever the fuck she's from, can we hear her talk? She's pretty decent in the ring. She's got some potential. Why is she not talking? Why don't they do vignettes with her? I don't know if the woman is Russian, American. I don't know what she is. Can we hear her talk? Can we get a little personality from her? It's that's how they treat the women's division. And until things change, that's how it's going to be. Look at how the women are in NXT. Look at how they're profiling. They're profiling NXT like stars. And AEW, it's like, oh, we got to have a women's match. Oh, I forgot, So Yeah, I mean, that type of stuff doesn't surprise me. In terms of the picture-in-picture thing, I didn't think about that. That's a good point, though.
Like I said, it's every single week at the 9:30, 9:30, 9:35, every single week. They go to a commercial break, picture in picture, and it's always during a women's match. And like I said, you want to say that all the horny men of the 18 to 49 group are going to stick around and, squint their eye for in between, a Snowpiercer promo and, seeing what's going on if there's a nip slip during a women's match during half a picture in picture are going to stay on.
No, no,
I
no,
don't
no.
know what the hell is going
I
on.
don't
And
want
I
to. I
want
don't
to
want to
thank
talk about. I don't want to talk about. I don't want to. Let's move on. I don't want to talk about nip slips and
you
stuff.
know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. I think just even mentioning that stuff's disrespectful to the women, to be honest.
But you understand what I'm saying, though. The idea of what's going on in regards to, can we please have full matches, not have to go to commercial breaks?
Corey, they don't even need to do matches. They can have a Dynamite where they don't have a women's match, but have 3 vignettes, have 3 backstage promos, highlight some of these women's personalities.
Oh, no,
Corey, they're having matches on Monday that they're gonna show on Monday on YouTube. I don't know these women from Adam. Can we do a profile on some of them so we know who the fuck is gonna be in these matches? Why am I gonna watch these matches?
I agree.
At least give us, and I know maybe they did it on their YouTube channel, and I appreciate that. At least tell us, hey, there's profiles of the women on the YouTube channel. To at least give us a hint.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, they did a 6-minute package with Tony Schiavone saying who all the women were and breaking down the bracket, which they did similarly. I can talk the English language, I swear. During the women's tag team match, and at least this time around, they let us know that the shows for the Japanese part of this tournament are going to be on YouTube at 7 o'clock on Monday, a lead-in to basically Monday night with Raw. I want to also thank Jacob Anthony Moses and Leon Thompson joining us in the chat. Our Wednesday programming on the Life Group, the Step Back, great basketball podcast. As Jay does the swoosh. It's interesting to see how that gets done. I mean, over the next couple of weeks as they lead into the Revolution pay-per-view, so he gets the shot against Shida.
Not only how do this get done, how do they make people care?
Yeah, what stories they tell, and are we just going to have 4 matches in 60 minutes or 55 minutes, and then all of a sudden we go match, and then we don't know anything about these people?
Clearly with Thunder Rosa's promo, I think they're setting her up as possibly the winner of this. But everybody says they're going to win, and that doesn't always happen. But I think they're setting her up as possibly the winner of this. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it will be interesting, and we'll talk more about it, next week when we get a chance to see the presentation and how everything went with the Japanese matches, and if we see any stars. I mean, we've already seen, some stuff online, via Twitter on how everything's going to go, but it will be interesting to see where they go with another thing that they did do, and the big story since the very first episode of AEW Dynamite has been the Inner Circle. The very first show, we saw Sammy Guevara have the first match on TV versus Cody Rhodes, doing the turn, and by the end of the night, he was part of the Inner Circle, with Chris Jericho, and with Santana and Ortiz, and we've joined with Hager and everyone else, Wardlow and MJF. And over the last couple weeks, we've had the story of MJF, if he can be trusted. And the story that ended last night's episode is Sammy Guevara has left the group. Once again, we have a young Hispanic star, maybe being a new babyface, getting into that Hispanic market. Jay, what do you think of Sammy Guevara with the face turn? Do you think this is a face turn? Do you think this could lead to, something where he was doing something with MJF from the beginning? Is this the beginning of, MJF becoming the leader of the group? Where do you think this goes?
I don't know, but I do know it's intriguing. So I know that there was some people who were not happy with how they did the segment with MJF and Sammy, that the camera was back there, but MJF clearly was taping it. And I know sometimes it gets a little funny in that way. And I get that people might have a problem with it, but I don't know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that Sammy was like, you know what, this is bullshit. And I know what you're up to. And I mean, we've all known what MJF's been up to for several weeks, but that's how wrestling goes. But I think it's been a pretty well crafted story. It has been a very long storyline, but I think it's been a pretty solidly well crafted story. The idea of MJF, the group caving from within and MJF taking it over, and eventually probably Jericho turning babyface along with Sammy Guevara, which I think is probably the big part of this. And then they team up. Sammy gets the rub from Jericho, and that's kind of probably how it goes. So I think it's great for Sammy. I see no reason why he can't. I mean, unlike Jungle Boy, like he can talk, man. He really is good on the mic, and he's a good looking guy. He's fantastic in the ring. And he hasn't. I feel like I haven't seen him wrestle much lately. I know they had that main event match or whatever, but he's terrific in the ring. I mean, Corey, when's the last time he had a singles match, a long singles match? I feel like it's maybe Omega a while ago. It's been a while, but anyway, point is, he is tremendous in the ring, and he's good on the mic. And yeah, I don't see why he couldn't be a out of the Jungle Boys, out of the some of the guys that they really want to be stars, and MJF I think is already there. I think Guevara has a chance to be the biggest star of all those guys, because he looks different. He's a Latinx star, Latino, Hispanic, however you choose to say, and he's got a level of charisma as a babyface. I think that has a chance to be pretty special. So we'll see how he develops over the line and how this all goes. But I think they've done a good job with the story. I rip AEW a lot, but I think they've done a really good job with this story. And I'm interested to see where it goes. I think Jericho played his part great, where like MJF was obviously snickering in the back and Jericho was like, get out of here. Like, I don't want to talk to you, because he's so upset that Guevara left. So where this goes, I think will be really interesting. And that's the problem, Corey. You talk about comparing NXT to AEW and this, and that. These matches, they don't even have title. We don't even know who's wrestling for the title. But you've got the Bullet Club and you've got Inner Circle. What happens with those groups? I mean, they could tell stories for months just based on those two things without even worrying about who's going for the titles.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. You can do a slow burn where you can go and just destroy these groups, over months, or you can do one thing and these things could, these groups could explode in one big show. So I mean, they have options, and I like the fact they've done the slow build over weeks and weeks with the Inner Circle, and we still and when it comes to the Bullet Club, there's still all of these pieces with the forbidden door. I love that term. I'm sorry. On where they're going to go, and if a Jay White, who can come to America because he's done some of the stuff with New Japan Strong, and you have guys like Tama Tonga who could be here, in quarantine and show up at.
Yeah, I think Tama Tonga's his family still lives. I think he's in Japan to do the shows, but
Right.
I'm pretty sure his family. I think they all live in Florida. He's a former military guy, so I don't think Jay White's a little bit different because I think he's a single guy, but Tama Tonga I think has a family. So I mean Tama Tonga might be here. I mean he might be in the United States. So but let's slowly take our time with all that stuff.
Absolutely.
That's an all out main event, right? Some type of God against the Bucks, Omega against Jay White, Kenta against I mean we're talking about and they could do. I mean I know they did this pay-per-view back in the day, and I know it did not go great. But WCW did have an NWO pay-per-view back in the day, right? Where it was all NWO.
Mm-hmm.
If they
sold out, yeah, NWO
sold out. And obviously it's a different time, whatever. If they did a show like that, Corey, that would be by far the highest selling pay-per-view they've ever done.
Yeah, and Jackie Endy wrote, "Slow burns make for the biggest payoffs." And Jake Anthony Moses, as we said before, the Step Back, brought up an interesting point, which we'll talk about this for 1 second before we move on to our preview. Does AEW have a huge face that can carry the company? I think that's a very interesting point. I mean, I think as time goes along, Hangman Page, or in a couple of years, Darby Allin, or a Jungle Boy. I think I may have said that twice there, but I think guys like that.
Jungle Boy has the personality of sandpaper. I don't
I
see
think
it
he
with.
also has the looks for the young female fans and everything.
That's great, but Corey, you got to be able to talk, man. I mean, here's the thing too, and Jacob makes a good point, but we got to remember the Elite, the Bullet Club. They're not. Damian Priest is older than all of them.
Yeah.
Right? He just got to Raw like yesterday, and he's older than all of them. Keith Lee's like the same age. They're in their mid-30s still. They have, I mean, we'll see with injuries and stuff like that. They should have plenty of years to figure it out. Now, Jericho obviously is super old, but beyond him, they have a pretty good collection of young guys. And then they have, the quote unquote young veterans.
John Moxley?
Moxley's could be there another 10 years easily. Like, why couldn't he be there 10? Why couldn't he be there for 10 years kicking ass? So, I don't know. I mean, maybe we talk about like trying to have a young face of AEW and stuff like that. I mean, we don't think about Raw. Everyone on Raw is like 50. I mean, it's crazy, right? Like everyone on Raw is our age. That's not a good sign. I woke up today and my back hurt, and I didn't do anything yesterday. Right? Like I'm just old now, and the fact that that's half the roster on Raw, and so I mean, the oldest guy on AEW is Jericho, and I think after that, maybe you got Lance Archer and Eddie Kingston who are older. But man, they got a lot of young. Pac, I don't think is that old. Phoenix, I'm pretty sure is very young, and Penta, I think they're in their maybe late 20s. I mean, they have a lot of young guys. They really, really do. Even compared to NXT, NXT's roster is much older than AEW. So they could really go any direction. But I'll give you a guy, and maybe this is super recency bias, Sammy Guevara.
Yeah, he could be. I mean, he could talk. He has. He has good. Good looking. Young guy. I mean, only thing you could say is, he's a little smaller. So
He is small.
And, I mean, but he has, the vlog on YouTube. He has the following there. I mean, he could be the young Latino or Latinx, star. And I think that he goes, and I think he can cross over as long as he can keep himself, good with the and staying out of trouble with stuff that he did when he was younger. And he's learned from his mistakes. Stuff with the Sasha Banks and everything else. I think, you could have a star there. And like I said, you have other people there like the MJFs who can be the foils for him that can work, So, I mean, absolutely. But Jay, as we run a little short on time, it's a great subject. Thank you, Jacob Anthony Moses, for bringing that up. And you guys should definitely check out The Step Back with Leon every Wednesday. Jay, let's do a quick preview of this Sunday, St. Valentine's Day. Jay, I guess you'll be spending it with the missus, watching highlights of Ben Roethlisberger as he loses another playoff game to the Browns during the day. But at night, you may watch a couple of minutes of the pay-per-view. What's your thoughts as we get in? I usually say 1 to 10. What's your interest level in the show before we take a little bit of a deep dive?
So a 10. I think this is maybe a 9.5. I mean, this is a really, really good show on paper. Funny Valentine's story for you guys. For you guys who are listening or watching, who are married or whatever, with a girlfriend or with a boyfriend or whatever you're with. So, like with the pandemic and everything, like my dates that I'm looking at is like February 25th and March 12th, because I think March 12th, because in March 25th, I get my second vaccine shot. And then March 12th, you're fully vaccinated after 12 days. And that's when I'm going to go crazy. Right. So those are the days I'm looking at. And so I have completely forgotten about Valentine's Day. Not one of my favorite things. My wife's a huge fan of it. All good. I know we're going long, but whatever. So she's whatever. I'm working and she's eating lunch and she's like, "What are we doing for Valentine's Day today?" And I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" She's like, oh, you don't have anything planned? I was like, well, I'm thinking about some stuff right now. And she's like, I already have all these things that I'm thinking about. How do you have all these things that you're thinking about? So yes, I got myself in a little bit of trouble. And she goes, well, I may as well tell you this now and prepare you for Valentine's Day so that you don't come empty handed.
Okay.
And I did tell her the only reason why I remembered about Valentine's Day was because of fucking NXT. So I didn't score too many points with the wife there, but she loves me anyway, and she knows I'm a goofball who really loves and cares about her. But Valentine's Day is it's just so funny. It's like completely with the pandemic and everything. It's like completely off my radar. So I don't know what I'll be doing Valentine's Day. I might be watching the show on Monday. So we will see.
So you and Troy the dog will be chilling out on the couch as the business goes and says, "I love you not, I love you not." So NXT Takeover Vengeance Day. We have Women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Final, which we finally found out at the very end that the winner will be getting a shot at the tag team titles from the main roster.
Please win. Whoever wins that match, please win. Oh, and don't get hurt. A combination of Sashi throwing her body all around and Nia Jax, who can't do a choke slam. Oh boy.
So Ember Moon and Sashi Blackheart versus Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. I think the heels win this. I think it's going to be Dakota and Raquel getting a chance for Raquel to be on all of the shows. Give her a little bit of shine, but I could see how you want Ember Moon back on the main roster. But I'm going to go with the heels on this. What do you think?
We spoke a little bit about this pre-show. With the stuff they've done with Sashi, they put her in a match with Io, which she really looked good. They spotlighted her in that Halloween Havoc segment. I'm also a huge Sashi fan. I think they want to really push her as that kind of next babyface, that babyface right behind Io Shirai. So I think Ember Moon and Sashi are going to win the match.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting choice, and I don't think you're wrong. MSK, Nash Carter, and Wes Lee, the former Rascals versus the Grizzly Young Veterans.
No, the grizzled young veterans. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. The grizzled young veterans were in the finals last year. Do they finally get the win, or does MSK make it all the way after debuting basically less than a month ago?
I think it's time for grizzled young veterans to win. I think MSK has been put over enough that if they lose, it's fine. And then what you do is you start highlighting their personality, and then you can set them up as the next challengers from whoever wins with grizzled young veterans and Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan, have they had when's the last time they had a title match? It's been forever. They are the most nothing champions. They're the most nothing tag team champions I feel like they've ever had on that show. So yeah, but I'm sure they would have a good match if they gave them some time. But yeah, I think grizzled young veterans win the match. But it can obviously go either way. If MSK won, it wouldn't be like, oh my God, that's a disaster. But I think grizzled young veterans take it.
Yeah, like I said, I think both of these matches on paper should be really good. We've got a match that I think has been built pretty well. I haven't loved. I think that Johnny Gargano has been very good in the comedy, but I wish that because I love Kushida so much that the comedy wasn't as prevalent. But Kushida finally getting a shot at another title versus the champion Johnny Gargano with the way. I'm going to say we get a title change here. Kushida finally wins WWE Gold. Do you agree with me, or does the way keep the title and Dexter Lumis, gets the next title shot?
Yeah, I think Gargano wins. They've flip-flopped the title a little bit too much, regardless. So I think Gargano wins, and I'm okay with that. I just need to see Kushida around. He doesn't need to win a title, but he needs to not be on the show for months. So they're clearly booking him. They're clearly giving him a push. They're making him look like a badass. So yeah, I think he'll be from here on out a pretty big part of the show moving forward. Yeah, so I see it being I'm very much looking forward to them. I mean, I'm looking forward to all these matches, but I'm very excited about that match. But I think Gargano wins.
And because I have a huge ego and Jay is almost as big as mine, we're going to stop the preview for a second because I like praise. Brian Drake from the Football Hustle, Fantasy Hustle podcast said, love the show, fellas. So I'm stopping the show just to take praise. Definitely check out Brian Drake every week. So we have the three-way for the women's title with the best, most likely female wrestler in the world, Io Shirai versus Toni Storm versus Mercedes Martinez, getting out of Retribution, which, I'm sure everyone else in that group wishes they could.
I mean, she was in there for 2 weeks and she's like, get me the fuck out of here. This is awful. And you know what? I'm going to give the WWE credit. I don't know why Mia Yim didn't leave. But Mercedes Martinez left, and she didn't get heat for it. She went right back to NXT, and she's going to get a push, and she'll probably be on SmackDown at the end of the year or whatever, and she'll get a push. I mean, she's a badass woman. So I'm very happy for her, and I'm happy that WWE didn't try to bury her like they have, Aleister Black and people like
that. So where do you see this going? I mean, I think that Io keeps the title and then most likely loses it at Mania because it looks like because it doesn't look like, and we could talk about this in weeks to come, but it really doesn't look like we're going to get a TakeOver WrestleMania weekend. So I can see all of the major titles, which I guess is all of the titles in NXT, being defended over the 2 days. So I can see, Toni Storm or Mercedes or Raquel getting that title WrestleMania weekend. So I kind of see Io Shirai keeping the title just due to that fact. If it wasn't for that, I can see Toni Storm or Mercedes winning the title on Sunday. But with that fact, I think that Io keeps the title for a little bit longer.
The next NXT Women's Champion is going to be Raquel Gonzalez. So I think Io wins and then loses at Mania to Raquel Gonzalez. Whatever their next big show is. So that's my prediction. I think that's where they're going to go. And I think Io wins this, and that's kind of where they go after that. They do have to figure it out, though. They have a lot of heels. When I was talking about Sashi Blackheart and, Ember Moon, I mean, they have two babyfaces. We got Toni Storm, Mercedes Martinez, Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez. They got a lot of heels. And some of their babyfaces like Canzaro and Kaden Carter, they're still more. They're not up there, and then Aaliyah and what they shouldn't count. But and I forgot about Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. So they have a lot of heels. They need to figure out what to do with some of these baby faces. So maybe we see a turn from someone at some point, but I do expect Io Shirai to win the match.
Yeah, I think I agree. So our final match, and it's really stacked as always, NXT card, is for your NXT title. It is Finn Balor versus the most likely the best British wrestler not named Walter, and Pete Dunne. Where do you see this going? I'd love to say that Pete Dunne gets the title, but I think that once again, WrestleMania weekend, you're going to have Finn Balor, your big star, in a big time match. So I think Finn Balor keeps the title.
Okay, Drake, our buddy, Fantasy Football Hustle, he's got merch now, so check him out, Brian Drake, and we'll get his Twitter handle. Maybe Corey can look that up while I talk about this match. But yeah, Fantasy Football Hustle, and his stuff looks good. The merch looks good. Usually I would say, don't buy his merch. It looks like shit. Their stuff looks good, so check it out. The hoodies, things like that. Okay, so his comment. I think NXT needs some new faces that are consistent, or needs some faces that are consistent. Kind of like Balor down there. I agree with him. Moon going back also was a good idea. Absolutely. Not everyone needs to go up to the main roster. Lord knows if you aren't 40, you aren't getting the strap. And this is him as well. NXT has a major issue. Everyone looks the same. All the characters are these dark cage fighting tat Viking goth guys and gals and girls who are Asian. And he's Drake Fantasy on Twitter. I agree. I agree. NXT does have a big problem. A lot of the guys are smaller, other than a few guys. Not a lot of different looking characters. I think that's one thing that stood out about Keith Lee. He was this big dude who could fly around the ring. And they've lost some of that. I mean, look at Dijak. I mean, them losing Dijak was a big deal, Corey. I mean, he'd be on this show fighting in one of these matches. Losing Dijak is a really, really big deal. So yeah. So we'll see what happens.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So as far as who's going to win this match, I'm going to say what I said for the Io Shirai match. The next NXT champion, as much as I don't get it, is going to be Karrion Kross. So I think Balor wins, and I think Karrion Kross wins at whatever, if they do a WrestleMania or whatever that takeover is.
All right. So you know what? I agree with you. So I'm going to give you a bonus. It's not on this week's show, but it's on next week's show. We all know Karrion Kross is more than likely going to win the match against Escobar. Is it a squash, or does Escobar actually have a chance to look good? And
they've got to make Escobar look good. I mean, NXT does do a good job with certain things, right? Like, he's only really killed jobbers, and he killed Ciampa the one time because they wanted to establish him. So I think it's a good match. A very weird heel versus heel match, but I actually kind of like it. I think it'll be a good match. I think it'll be really interesting because, they had the Keith Lee match where he won a title, and I thought the match was okay. Went against Damian Priest, I thought that match was better. But now, I mean, Santos Escobar is better than both of those guys. And I love Keith Lee and I love Damian Priest, but Santos Escobar is a better pro wrestler than them. I wonder how Karrion Kross is going to look here. I wonder how he's going to look and what he's going to do. And, because I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced, but maybe others are. We are, and Corey, what's your take on that before I talk about the great life group podcasts?
I'm hoping you're right. It just feels like everything that's been going on, that everything's building to Escobar being the cocky heel who gets his comeuppance and basically is going to get killed in this match. I mean, I really do hope that they let Escobar get a little bit in, but I kind of think Escobar is going to get his comeuppance and it's going to be ugly. I think Karrion Kross is going to make a statement, and this is going to be the start of the build of him taking out a champion, and it's going to be the start of him saying, I took out a cocky champion. The next champion I take out is the guy who took my belt that I never lost. And this will be the build of him going towards Finn Balor. I think that's what this is going to be. And I think it could be ugly. I hope he gets in a little bit of offense, but I don't see this being competitive. And I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong too. The reason why I think it'll be long is because it's a TV show and they need to extend these matches. So I think that's all, one of the reasons why. But all right, we're part of the great Life Group podcast network. Are we a network officially? I guess you can call us a network. We've got Dong City on Monday, baseball podcast. Baseball starting. Corey and I are in this 16-team crazy fantasy league, and we just got word that the league is going to continue under very interesting rules. My team is pretty shitty, so I might have to listen to Dong City to get some advice. Yeah, your team is horrible. Yeah, Tuesday, we've got the Audible. I mean, I don't know who's going to get traded. We got Wentz, we got Watson, we got Sam Darnold. It's crazy.
Westbrook apparently now is unhappy. Is there
no. He's not unhappy. First of all, if the Seahawks trade him, and I know this is oppressive, and we go along. If the Seahawks trade him, they should disband the franchise.
Yeah.
Just sell the team and move, and just disband the franchise. Get out of here. We got the step back. I'm more into the NBA than I have been in a long time, and the games have been competitive and good. And why the fuck is not anyone talking about Utah and Donovan Mitchell for MVP. I may have a couple of bucks on him to win MVP, but they have been spectacular. Of course, you've got Work Shoot Wrestling podcast on Thursdays, and then you've got Total Bases, another baseball podcast on Sundays. So yeah, some great shows to listen to. You could just go to Facebook, plug in your headphones, listen to these guys talk. You can be interactive with the show too, and throw comments in. So yeah, listen to the shows. They are tremendous.
Absolutely. And of course, as we said before, check out our buddy Brian Drake at Drake Fantasy. They keep you up with the latest in fantasy football, let you know, I'm sure, about the early stuff when it comes to the guys in the draft you should be looking at in some of your mock drafts
Travis Etienne.
For next year when it comes to fantasy football.
Travis Etienne, everyone, Travis Etienne is going to be the dude. He is going to be the next Alvin Kamara. You heard it here first.
Very cool. And I know he hasn't been on in a while, but our buddy, former guest on the show, Christopher Morin, has been plugging us on his podcast weekly. So definitely check out the Morin's Law podcast. You can check him out on Twitter at Mordens_law. He kind of gave me a little bit of crap for not plugging, so I'm going to be nice for a change. But Jay, I always like to see if Jay crack every once in a while. But there is another podcast that we talk about occasionally, apparently, our sister podcast. Do you remember the name of it? I'm kind of drawing a blank.
You don't know Jackie. You don't know Jackie, the comedy podcast. Jackie Andy, Jackie Rachel, Jackie Corey. It is yeah, I throw you in there. Great comedy podcast, guys. Please take a listen. And Corey will give us a little preview. Corey, what's the next You Don't Know Jackie podcast gonna entail?
Well, this past week we spoke about a little bit about that guy Arnie Hammer with his cannibalism. So then coming up, I believe we're doing a little fun game of.
There's nothing funny about cannibalism, Corey. It's horrible. That's Ben Campbell.
Well, we're doing a little fun game. If I can edit it in time, based on the year you were born, the celebrities. You basically put a movie together. So I'm 1978 because I'm an old son of a bitch. Put the actors, musicians. You put together a movie idea. Who's going to sing it? Like I was born in 1978, so John Legend be doing the music for mine. I forgot who the actors were, but
John Legend. Oh, so for the person who was born in that same year.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was for the person who was popular in that year.
No. And fun conversation. So maybe one year we'll do like 1979, your year, because you're just a little younger than I am. Because you're still an old.
Why are you throwing out birthdays for? Why? People don't need to know my age. I said old. Old is the classification. You don't need to know. I still look young. I look good, although I left my razor in Arkansas, and so I have not shaved in weeks. And my wife is not happy because she's like, you don't need to shave the beard, but you need to at least make it look like you give a shit. And that's why I also have my beanie, because I haven't gotten a haircut in 2 months because of the pandemic.
I haven't gotten a haircut in 11 months.
So I just look like a complete mess. But anyway, I digress.
But yeah, so it was a fun time, and we did one also on 1985 and 1995. Our two other co-hosts, and
someone was born in 1995. Jesus.
Yeah, Jackie Rachel is the youngin of the group. So the people on that one were a bunch of YouTube stars, and Megan the Stallion, and it's gonna be interesting on it. Who's from that time period? But it was an entertaining time. Those will be out in the next couple of weeks, and of course, as I said, if we can get everyone the same place at the same time, we're still going to do the David Arquette episode, which we're hoping to get done. And I think coming up, we might be doing an episode on the recent documentary that came out from the New York Times, framing of Britney Spears, which has been in the news lately on, I guess, her case with her father, with, I guess, basically her being able to live her own life.
Let me live my own life, Dad. Don't take all my money.
Yeah, something like that. But I heard through the grapevine we might be doing something on that. So I actually watched that documentary on Hulu. Actually, wasn't that bad. But Jay, I think we talked about a lot of interesting things this week. I think the final word, as always, can be yours. So how about you tell us Your final thoughts and prayers and all that other fun stuff.
No final thoughts and prayers. Stay safe. Wear your mask. I think we're done here. See ya.
Bullet Club.